My name is Scarlett Owens. I'm 29 years old, and until 6 weeks ago, I was the kind of person who genuinely believed that being useful to the people you love is the same thing as being loved back. I run a mid-sized event production company in Nashville. We do corporate launches, private galas, brand activations. By the time I was 27, we had 3 full-time coordinators, vendor partnerships across 4 states, and a client list that included 2 Fortune 500 regional offices. I built it from a spreadsheet in my college apartment and a secondhand folding table I used as a desk until I could afford a real one. My younger sister got engaged in February. Her name is the one I keep stopping myself from saying out loud even now, so I'll just call her my sister. She's 26. Sweet, a little scattered, the kind of person everyone wants to protect. Her fiancé, I'll call him my brother-in-law to be, or I guess now, just nothing, came from a family that had opinions about everything and money for none of it. When she called me crying happy tears from a Cracker Barrel parking lot at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, I told her I was going to give her the most beautiful day of her life. And I meant it. I offered to handle everything through my company. Not as a charity case, I said, but as my gift. I'd cover the production costs at internal rates, call in favors from vendors I built relationships with, and use my team's bandwidth during our slower spring window. The number we landed on was just under $62,000 in real market value. What it actually cost me in cash, with my discounts and deferred vendor fees, was closer to 38. I told my parents both numbers. I wanted them to understand what the gesture was. My mother said, "You've always been so capable." I should have written that sentence down, framed it maybe. It turned out to be the whole story. For 4 months, I was in it completely. Site visits, linen samples, tasting menus. My lead coordinator, who I'll call my work partner because she's been with me since the beginning, took on most of the day of logistics. I was on the phone with the venue manager twice a week. I redesigned the floor plan 3 times because my sister kept changing her mind about the photo area, and each time I just opened the file and fixed it, no complaint. Because that's what you do for someone you love. Then in early June, 8 weeks before the wedding, my work partner called me on a Wednesday afternoon while I was driving back from a client walkthrough. "Hey," she said, "I need to tell you something and I'm not sure how." I pulled into a gas station. She had been CC'd on an email from my mother to the venue coordinator. The subject line was, "Regarding day of protocol and family introductions." My mother had written, with full confidence, that I would not be present at the rehearsal dinner or the wedding weekend in any official capacity, that my involvement had been logistical and is now complete, that any questions about the production should be routed to my parents going forward as they were hosting the event. Then she added, "Scarlett tends to make things about her work. We want the weekend to feel like a family celebration, not a portfolio piece." My work partner read it twice to make sure she had it right before she called me. I sat in that gas station parking lot for probably 15 minutes. A man filled his tank next to me and drove away, and I just kept staring at the word logistical on my phone screen, like I was a vendor, like I was an invoice that had been filed. When I finally drove home, I didn't call my mother. I didn't call my sister. I went into my home office, opened my laptop, and started pulling files. Here's the thing about running an event production company. Everything is documented. Contracts, email trails, internal notes, call logs. I had a project folder for my sister's wedding that was 47 items deep. Venue agreement, my company's name on the contract. Catering hold, confirmed through my preferred vendor relationship, with my account number as the guarantee. Floral installation, my partner's studio, invoiced to my LLC. Photo and video, a team I had brought on 18 months ago specifically because I wanted them available for clients and personal projects. The DJ, the lighting rig, the custom backdrop rental, all of it ran through me. My parents had been copied on communications as family contacts, not as clients, not as financial sponsors, because they weren't. I kept reading. I found another email, this one from 3 weeks earlier, that I had been quietly removed from. It was a group thread with my sister, my mother, my father, and the venue coordinator. My mother had written, "We prefer Scarlett step back from the creative conversations at this point. She's done so much already. Let's let the bride lead from here." And then a few lines down. Also, please don't bring up the financial arrangements with Scarlett. She offered this as a gift, and we don't want her to feel like we owe her anything. That would make it transactional. My father had replied with one line, "Agreed. She'll be fine." I read that email 4 times. She'll be fine. Like I was a weather system they'd decided to ignore. Like $38,000 and 4 months of my team's time was just atmospheric noise. They could tune out when it became inconvenient. I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it before you read the next part. If you found emails where your own family had quietly agreed to remove you from an event you were entirely funding and producing, and their reason was that your competence made other people uncomfortable, what would you do? Would you call and give them a chance to explain? Would you walk away and let it go? Or would you make sure they understood exactly what they were giving up? I've spent a lot of years being fine. I was fine when my sister got a car for her 16th birthday, and I got a card. I was fine when my parents used my industry connections to get a discount at a venue for my cousin's bridal shower, and didn't mention they were related to me until after the invoice was settled. I was fine when my mother told her book club I had a little event planning business the same year I cleared 6 figures. I was really genuinely done being fine. I called my work partner back that night. "I need you to pull the Owens wedding file," I said. She was quiet for a second. "All of it. Everything that's under our umbrella. Venue hold, catering confirmation, floral, photo, video, the lighting rental, the backdrop. Everything." "Scarlett." She said my name carefully, the way you say someone's name when you're not trying to talk them out of something, just making sure they're certain. "You know what that does to the timeline." "I know exactly what it does," I said. "That's the point." She started making calls the next morning. The venue coordinator reached out to my mother within 48 hours. There was a conflict with the primary account holder, and the date hold was being released. The catering company, which I had been using for 2 years and whose owner owed me a professional favor from a difficult corporate event I had quietly saved, canceled the contract citing a scheduling error they'd need to resolve with me directly. The floral studio, my studio technically since I'd co-invested in their expansion last year, put the order on administrative hold pending account review. One by one, the scaffolding started coming down. My mother called me on a Thursday morning while I was in a client meeting. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. Then my father. Then my sister, twice. I finished my meeting, walked to my car, and sat for a moment before I listened to any of them. My mother's voicemail, "Scarlett, we don't know what's happening with the vendors, but everyone is saying there's some kind of problem with the account. Please call us back immediately. The wedding is in 8 weeks." My father's, "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not the time for this. Call your mother." My sister's first, "Scarlett, the venue just called Mom and something's wrong. Are you okay? What's happening?" Her second, left 20 minutes later, voice quieter, "I saw the email. Mom just told me. I didn't know they sent that. I didn't know you weren't. I didn't know they took you off the guest list planning stuff. Please call me." That second voicemail stopped me for a minute, because my sister's voice in it sounded young and scared in a way that made me remember that she was 26 and she genuinely might not have known all of it. That possibility hurt in a different way than the emails had. I called my parents first. My father answered and immediately said, "Is this about the vendors? Because if this is some kind of tantrum," I said, "it's not a tantrum. It's a contract review. Everything tied to my account is currently under administrative hold. If you want to discuss how to resolve that, I'm available. If you want to call it a tantrum, I'm going to hang up and you can explain to the venue why the primary account holder is withdrawing." Silence. "Come home," my mother said. She must have been on speaker. "Come home and we'll talk about this in person." I drove down that Friday. My parents' house is in a suburb outside Knoxville, the kind of neighborhood where people still bring casseroles when someone's sick. where everyone knows your car, where reputation is a real currency. When I pulled up, there were already two other cars in the driveway I didn't recognize. I found out later they belonged to an aunt and my mother's closest friend from church. My mother had assembled an audience. I walked in and the living room was full. My mother and father on the couch, my sister and her fiancé in chairs pulled in from the dining room, my aunt at the kitchen counter pretending to look at her phone, my mother's friend sitting very still near the window with the expression of someone who had been briefed. My mother stood up. "I'm so glad you came. We were worried." "I'm sure," I said. I put my bag down. "I know about the emails. Both of them. I know you told the venue coordinator I wasn't going to be at the wedding. I know you told them my contribution was a gift that didn't need to be acknowledged. And I know you've been routing family communications through a thread I wasn't included in." My sister's fiancé looked at my sister. She was staring at her hands. "Sweetheart," my mother said in the voice she uses when she wants to sound patient, "we were trying to protect you. You do so much. You're always working. We didn't want your sister's wedding to feel like one of your events." "It is one of my events," I said. "That's not an insult. It's literally the facts. My company is producing it. My vendors are executing it. My professional relationships are making it possible. And we're grateful," my father said, the word grateful, landing like he'd rehearsed it. "But there's a difference between being grateful and making the whole thing about me," I finished. "I wasn't planning to make it about me. I was planning to sit at a table and watch my sister get married. That's all." "You removed that option without telling me and then told the venue I was a logistics contact who had completed her function?" My aunt made a small noise from the kitchen. My sister looked up. "I didn't know about the guest list thing," she said. Her voice was thin. "Mom told me you were probably going to be too busy to come for the whole weekend. She said you'd make an appearance. Did you ask me?" She didn't answer. Her fiancé shifted in his chair. He's the kind of person who stays quiet in family situations, which I'd always read as easygoing. That day I read it as the silence of someone who had decided this wasn't his problem. My mother turned toward me with an expression I knew very well, the one that meant she was about to reframe the entire thing as being about my emotional state. "Lauren, you've always had trouble letting other people be in charge. We've seen it your whole career. You need to control the outcome. This was your sister's day, and you were making it impossible for anyone else to feel like they had a role. My name is not Lauren." But I let it go. "You're right that I have a hard time letting things fall apart," I said. "It's why my company works. But what you're describing, me wanting credit, wanting control, that's not what happened. I sent you a floor plan revision at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night because my sister asked me to move the photo booth 3 feet to the left. I did it without complaint. What I didn't know was that, while I was doing that, you were composing emails about how to quietly make sure I wasn't in the room when the pictures were taken." My father rubbed his face. My mother looked at the window. My sister said, very quietly, "What happens now?" "With the vendors." "That depends," I said. "Every major vendor on this wedding is either contracted through my company or is there because of my professional relationship. The venue knows me. The caterer has worked with me for 2 years. The floral studio is partially mine. If I withdraw from this project, the wedding as it's currently planned does not happen, not in 8 weeks. Possibly not at all, because most of these vendors won't rebook a date this close without a relationship they trust." The room was very quiet. "You're not seriously saying you'd cancel everything?" My father's voice had gone flat. "I'm saying it's already in motion," I said. "I didn't do it out of anger. I did it because when I found out I'd been erased from an event I was funding and producing, I had to ask myself why I was still funding and producing it. I couldn't come up with a good answer." My mother started to cry. "I had expected this. I had prepared for it," which sounds cold, but when you've spent 29 years watching someone use tears to end conversations, you learn to wait them out. "We made a mistake," she finally said. "We didn't think about how it would feel to you. We thought we were doing what was best for the family." "For the family," I said, "or for the image of the family?" No one answered. "I want to stop here and ask you, because I've been going back and forth on this ever since. If your parents admitted they made a mistake, but you could see they still didn't fully understand what the mistake was, not the emails, not the guest list, but the 20 years of treating your success as a resource and your feelings as inconvenient, would you accept the apology, or would you need something more than the words?" Because I looked at my mother's face in that moment, and I could see she was sorry. I believe that, but I could also see that her sorry was mostly about the vendors falling through, about explaining to the church friend next to her and the aunt in the kitchen that the beautiful wedding she had been describing for months was now in pieces. Her sorry had an audience, and sorry with an audience isn't really the same thing. I drove back to Nashville that night. My phone was active for hours. My sister texted me 14 times. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years sent me a paragraph that included the phrase, "This is so unlike you. You've always been so selfless," which told me everything about how the story was being told on their end. My sister and I talked on the phone at midnight. She had been crying. She asked me if I had actually canceled everything or if it was fixable. I told her the truth. Most of it can be reversed if I make the calls. Some of the vendor time may be reallocated already. The venue hold is recoverable for now, but I need you to hear something first. She was quiet. "I need you to tell me honestly whether you knew I was being kept off the weekend plans. Not the emails, not the coordinator conversations. Just, did you know I wasn't going to be there as your sister?" A long pause. "I thought you would be there. But I didn't push back when Mom said you'd probably skip the rehearsal dinner. I let her tell me you were busy. I think I wanted it to be true because I was scared you'd run it." That one landed harder than the emails. I told her I understood. I told her I wasn't going to pretend that didn't hurt, and then I told her that her wedding wasn't the casualty here. Our family's pattern was. The wedding was just the first time the pattern had a price tag big enough for everyone to see. She cried more. She said she didn't want to lose me over this. I said I didn't want to be lost. What I didn't say was that I'd already spent most of the drive home on the phone with my work partner, figuring out what could still be saved and what we'd let go. The venue I reversed, the catering I reversed with a rescheduling fee that came out of the contingency budget I'd originally allocated, which meant my parents absorbed it without knowing it. The floral studio I kept on hold for one more week. The photo and video team I called personally and explained there had been an internal miscommunication. They stayed on, partly because they're professionals and partly because they think they understood what had actually happened without me spelling it out. What I did not reverse was my role. I told my work partner she would handle all direct communications with the family from that point forward. I would be present at the wedding as a guest, not as a coordinator, not as a contact, not as the person who built the whole thing. As a guest, with my name on the seating chart and a chair at a table and the right to cry at my sister's vows without anyone framing it as me making the moment about myself. My mother called me 2 days later, calmer than before. She asked if I would come back for a conversation. Just the immediate family, no audience. I said yes. We met at my parents' kitchen table, no extended family, no witnesses. My sister was there. Her fiancé came and sat at the edge of the room and didn't say much, which I'd made a private decision to let slide for now. My parents looked tired, the particular kind of tired that comes from explaining something to everyone you know and still not feeling like the explanation is working. My father spoke first. "I've been thinking about what you said. About the image of the family." He stopped. Started again. "You're right that we care a lot about what things look like. Your mother and I grew up without much. When you started doing well, really well, I think we didn't know how to make that fit with the story we told ourselves about who we were. So we put you in a box that made it easier. Capable. Handles everything. Doesn't need us." I hadn't expected him to say that. I sat with it. "Doesn't need us" is a very efficient story to tell about a person," I said eventually. It means you never have to worry about what you're taking from them. My mother pressed her hands flat on the table. We took advantage of you. I know that. I've been trying to figure out how to say it without making it sound like an excuse, and I can't. We took advantage of your generosity and then we moved you out of the picture before you could expect anything back. My sister reached across the table and put her hand on my arm. We sat there for a while in the way that families sometimes do when the conversation has finally gotten to the thing that was always the conversation, and no one quite knows what comes next. What came next was this. The wedding happened. 6 weeks later, smaller adjustments, same venue, same team. I was on the seating chart as family. I walked in with my parents. I cried during the vows, actual tears, not performance, because whatever else had happened, my sister loves her person and I could see it in her face when she looked at him. I did not coordinate a single thing that day. My work partner ran the production. When a vendor had a question, they called her. When the timeline shifted by 12 minutes because of a late shuttle, she handled it. I sat at my table and I ate my dinner and I danced to 2 songs, and no one said a single word about what I did for a living. It was strange. It was also, in a quiet way, I'm still sitting with exactly what I'd needed. My parents and I are not fixed. I want to be honest about that because I've read enough of these stories to know that people want a clean ending, and I don't have one. My mother still sometimes catches herself starting sentences with, "You're so lucky," and then visibly recalibrating. My father told someone at church that his daughter runs her own business in Nashville and it's quite something, which is the most he has ever said out loud on my behalf without attaching a qualifier, so I'm counting it. My sister and I talk more than we used to. Real conversations, not logistics. She asked me recently if I was glad I hadn't let it go or if I wished I had just stayed quiet and let the wedding happen the way our parents had planned it. I thought about it for a while before I answered. I said, if I had stayed quiet, everyone would have learned that the right way to treat me is to remove me from things I build and call my absence convenient. My parents would have never said the things my father said at that kitchen table. My sister would have gone to her wedding thinking I was probably too busy to make it for the rehearsal, and we would have continued in that gentle, comfortable version of our relationship where she is protected and I am useful. I didn't want to be useful anymore. I wanted to be there. Here's what I actually learned from all of it. Not the revenge part, not the vendor calls, but the weeks after. There's a particular exhaustion that comes from being the person everyone counts on, and a particular invisibility that lives inside it. People who need you don't always see you. They see what you provide. And as long as you keep providing it, there's very little pressure on them to look up. Setting a limit isn't a betrayal of the people you love. It's the first time you ask them to love you back in the same direction. I want to ask you one last thing, and I really want you to answer in the comments. If you're the one in your family who always shows up, always handles it, always makes it work, has anyone ever made sure you had a seat at the table you set? And if they haven't, what would it take for you to finally say so? Because I spent 29 years setting the table. It only took one phone call to remind everyone that it was mine. From my point of view, this story was never really about a wedding. The wedding was just the first time the math became visible to everyone at the same time. What I've been sitting with, weeks after all of it, is how long a pattern can run before anyone names it. My parents didn't wake up one morning and decide to use me. It happened gradually, in the way most quiet injustices do. One small accommodation at a time, one "she'll understand" at a time, until understanding became my permanent role and no one thought to question it anymore. That's how it works. Not malice. Habit, and habit is, in some ways, harder to confront than malice because it doesn't feel like a choice anyone made. But here's the thing about habits. They only continue if both sides allow them to. My parents leaned on me because I kept showing up. I kept showing up because I genuinely loved them and I wanted to help. And somewhere in the middle of all that love and all that helping, I lost the thread back to myself. I stopped asking whether what I was giving was being received with equal care. I just gave and told myself that was enough and quietly swallowed every moment when it wasn't. The day I pulled those vendors, I wasn't acting out of anger in the way people might assume. I was acting out of clarity. There's a difference. Anger wants to hurt. Clarity just needs the truth to land somewhere it can't be ignored. My parents had become very skilled at not seeing what was inconvenient. The only way to make them see it was to remove the thing that had been making the inconvenience so comfortable. What followed? My father at that kitchen table saying out loud that they had put me in a box that made it easier. That didn't happen because I cried or begged or sent long emotional texts at midnight. It happened because I stopped subsidizing the version of our family where my feelings were optional. The moment I withdrew, the actual cost of the arrangement became real to everyone. That's not revenge. That's just what truth costs when it's been deferred for too long. My sister walked down an aisle 6 weeks later, and I was there. That mattered more than any of the rest of it, but I was there as a person, not as a function. And the difference between those two things. I can't explain it in a way that does it justice, except to say that I've been to a lot of events in my life, and that was the first one where I felt like I actually existed inside it. If you're the capable one, the reliable one, the person everyone calls when something needs to be handled, I'm not telling you to blow anything up. I'm telling you to notice when your presence has quietly been replaced by your usefulness. Those are not the same thing. You are not the same thing as what you provide. The people who love you well will not need you to disappear in order to feel good about themselves. That's the line. It's a simple one, and it took me 29 years to see it clearly. I hope it takes you less.